Dave Scott Hub Media video today. I'm sitting with Jeff Scott. I should know that. My name's Dave Scott. It wouldn't be that hard to figure out, would it? But we're going to talk about the MS Society, their upcoming walk, which is May 1st at Holy Trinity High School in Simcoe. Registration is at 8:30. The walk, I believe, starts at 10 a.m. There's a breakfast coming up April 17th, a kickoff breakfast at Kaylee's in a brunch downtown Simcoe at the restaurant. You know, it's a wonderful event. I go every time. The food's awesome, so I'm giving that a plug. But today we're going to talk to Jeff about dealing with MS. Jeff, you had symptoms in 1996. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I was going to university at the time, and I first experienced a challenge where when I would run for the bus, I would get a cheesecloth that would show up over my eye and blurry vision.
Yeah.
And I would get on the bus, and by the time I got to the university, it would go away. But I pursued finding out what that was.
Yeah.
And between having a cataract in my right eye and a cataract in my left eye and cataract in both eyes, and then the list goes on, they finally decided that there was something there, but they didn't know what. So that was the adventure into diagnosis.
And it took quite a while. When you were telling me earlier, I think, what year did you finally get diagnosed?
2004.
2004. That's a long time. Can you talk about you were telling me earlier about the symptoms that were showing up and the progression of the disease. Can you talk a bit about that?
Absolutely. So we had quite a roller coaster ride as a family. I was working at the time, and everything from the blurry vision all the way down to the point where my arm would go up in the air.
Oh, really? Wow.
And I would reach up and I'd try to pull it down, and it wouldn't come down. And my daughter would come across the room, and she would try to pull it down. It wouldn't come down. My leg would go straight out, and she'd try to sit on it, but it wouldn't go down. So I had everything you can imagine. And finally, one blistery day, there was a snowstorm.
Yep.
And I decided that enough was enough, and I had to go find out what it was. And I went to the hospital, and they sat me in a room, and they rolled in this card that had a needle on it. And the needle was 10 centimeters long.
Oh, boy.
But it was a blistery day, so there were lots of accidents and lots of things for them to deal with. So I was laying on the bed, looking at this thing, thinking, is there any way I can get out? But they gave me a spinal tap.
Yeah.
And the spinal tap was to determine the level of protein, and if there was a potential for me to have MS. And so they found out that yes, there was a potential. And the next step then would be to go to get an MRI.
Yeah.
So I was on temporary leave from work, and if you can imagine, I'm sitting in the car, just started up to go to work, and my wife comes out the door, and she says, "Hey, before you go, there's a call," right?
Yeah.
And I went back in and answered the call. And they said, "Hi, is this Jeff Scott?" "Yes, it is." "You have MS, is that okay?"
Wow. And your life changed that day?
Yeah, absolutely. We, my wife and I, we hugged, and there were tears, and then I went to work.
You carried on.
It carried on. It was the end of my short-term disability leave, so I had to go back.
And what year was that? That was 2004?
Yeah, diagnosed in 2004, so that would have been the time.
And you're now living in Norfolk. At the time, I believe you were living in Markham. You moved to
Yes.
Norfolk a year ago, and you love the community, you were telling me earlier.
Norfolk is wonderful. The people are great, and the pace of life is so much better.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
And you have a daughter?
Yes.
and she's in grade, I think you're telling me in grade 6.
In grade 6.
And one of the things that we talked about the other day, and we're getting a little bit off topic here, but it really resonated with me, was when we were talking about your MS, and I was kind of heartbroken because I felt for you. I wanted you to do everything that that everybody else gets to do, and I said, going to work every day, and you reminded me of one of the positives about MS. Can you talk a bit about that?
Sure. With every door that closes, I mean, I was upset to lose my job. But with every door that closes, there's 3 more that are there. And whether or not you open them is the first challenge. But I was a stay-at-home dad.
Yeah.
And I was there for my daughter's first words, my daughter's first steps. And I took the training wheels off my daughter's bike, right? Like every step of the way, I was able to be there. And if I did not have MS, I'd be working, and I'd miss those opportunities. So there are really some silver linings that you can enjoy.
That's wonderful to hear. I mean, a lot of times when you're faced with the situation you're faced with, a lot of people really maybe don't turn to that train of thought that you did, and it's refreshing to hear. But I mean, MS has limited what you can do. You've told me that, and you've told me how you were doing photography. And can you talk a bit about the progressions, because I didn't realize the steps that you were going through with this. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. It's a progressive disease, and in the beginning you have relapsing remitting MS,
Yeah.
which is something will happen to you.
Yeah.
You'll have some sort of limitation that may go away. It could be any extreme, from not being able to use your hands, not being able to walk. It could be not being able to see. And it'll come back and you just continue on life as per normal. That progresses though, and there are 4 stages of MS, and the last one is secondary progressive. So what I've gone through is all 4 of the stages, and now I'm at the worst one. They say it's the worst one. But now for me, everything will continue to decline. I won't have that bounce back. And you have to reinvent yourself as you have these challenges. You have to figure out how to make yourself feel useful, right? You have to do things like focus on your family. You have to do things like helping out in the community when you can. And those are critical things for me. And so those roles change. My hand was fine. I was able to take photographs. I went out and I bought an expensive camera. All right, I was ready to travel Ontario and, take great scenes, and it didn't pan out. So, nonetheless, as you come along with each of these things, you have to find something new. And now, for example, I'm not able to run a vacuum cleaner. I'm not able to, clean the house.
Yeah.
But I have somebody do that for me. That's the dream, isn't it?
Yes.
And the MS Society helps out with that.
And speaking of the MS Society, you were telling me over the years some of the cool stuff you've done, like in Markham when you were with MS, and I know you're on the walk committee here now. Dave Horton, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dave gets everybody involved, doesn't he?
Yes.
And he's a great guy. He's a great advocate, and that you're educating people. You're talking about this disease, and one of the things I found really cool was you're talking about what you do with reading. You did in Markham
an MS readathon.
Readathon,
which is phenomenal. In fact, I can remember a lady named Mrs. Anderson. And when I was in grade 6, actually my daughter's age, I was sitting in a gymnasium watching her do the MS Readathon and reading books and raising funds for the MS Readathon, improving my literacy.
yeah,
And it was phenomenal to be able to learn about all the limitations and all the adaptations that she had. And so after I got MS, I decided that the MS Readathon was what I wanted to do. And so I got involved. I traveled Ontario, the whole thing.
Yeah.
I've been to every school that I could possibly go to and talked about MS as a whole, what it means for me, and what they mean for me, raising funds.
Yeah.
So it's been a phenomenal adventure. And then later on, I actually found Mrs. Anderson.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Oh, that's cool.
we reunited in a nursing home, and I talked to her about how important her role was for me.
Wow.
And it was nice to be able to,
That must have been an emotional moment.
yeah, really uplifting.
And you think about what she has gone through, and to have someone like a student like that come back and say, "Hey, you know, you helped me, or this is I followed in your footsteps."
It makes it all worthwhile.
And I think that leads to your why you're so positive. I think that's probably part of your makeup. You don't seem to you're not letting this thing get you down. You keep fighting, and I think that's important. Anything you want to say to the folks? The MS Walk again is May 1st, Holy Trinity School, 8:30 registration. Is there any words you want to tell folks to get out and get involved? Right?
You want to get involved. You want to participate in any way that you can, whether you can walk or not, whether you can ride a scooter or not. This is a worthy cause, and I would encourage you to be a part of the pit crew of all the people with MS, to help to repair them, to make it better, to be able to take on that next lap. Because we need your help, and we can go most of the mile, but the MS Society is definitely a great crutch.
That's awesome, and I think last year's event raised over $40,000. You know, to the good folks of Norfolk and the Grand Erie chapter. Let's get out and raise more money this year. Let's help folks with MS, and let's make a difference. And one last thing, can you explain a little bit where the money goes?
The money goes to two places. Okay, there's going to be the research that needs to be done, the doctors, the nurses, all that medical team that we need. It's there to support them and to give them resources.
Yep.
But the incredible thing is that the other half goes to people who have MS. And depending on their individual limitations, they can get assistance with house cleaning.
Yep.
They can get assistance with shoveling snow, which, thank goodness, I would not be able to do if we didn't have the MS Society. So there are so many things that affect people with MS, but half of that money is going to Norfolk. It's not going anywhere else. It's not going to the rest of the country. Half of that money stays right here to help the people that are affected with MS in this neighborhood.
Jeff, you've said it all. Thank you for doing this today. I really appreciate you educating us on MS and sharing your story with us.
Well, thanks for helping.
Thank you.